This is the second time I've filmed this voice ever. My neighbours are being very noisy today. So we'll see if we can get through it. Hedgerow Harvest by Jean Barber. In the days before refrigerators were in general use and deep freezing was unheard of, the seasons had a special importance for us. How we looked forward to fresh new peas and early spring greens after the dull root vegetables of the winter. Canned vegetables were available but too expensive for regular use, and the more primitive canning methods of the day were still regarded with suspicion. How we children looked forward to the apple harvest after the long months without them. Most of us had a neighbour or a friend with an apple tree who would allow us to pick up the windfalls. Imported apples were unheard of in our community, although oranges were common, but only at certain times, being at their best around Christmas. In the back gardens of our street were grown, in season, gooseberries, rhubarb, red and black currants, raspberries and plums. Our only way of preserving them was in jams, jellies and pickles. In the autumn our pantry shelves would be well stocked with various jams, jellies, also chutneys, piccalilli, pickled onions, beetroot and cabbage, raspberry vinegar, salted kidney peas and a bucket of eggs in isinglass. A tray of sound apples, keepers, was put by for Christmas and carefully guarded from wandering fingers, or to add a little variety to a monotonous winter diet. We also took advantage of the fruit trees. Free fruit, herbs, nuts and fungi of the field and hedgerow. We would forage for quantities of young nettles for Mam to make herb beer in the kitchen copper. We would be sent out to gather blossoms for elderflower tea, and the berries we used to make a lotion for sore eyes. Dandelion roots were slowly sieved in water. A wineglassful was taken as a pick-me-up. Valerian roots, similarly treated, would keep our grandma quiet for hours, according to Dad. Bitterroot tea was used to treat mysterious women's complaints. At the back end, on warm, damp days, we would rise early and go to the meadows that sloped down to the Nut Brook by Manor Flood. Here we would find mushrooms year after year. We would go nutting down country lanes seeking hazelnuts and chestnuts. Only after exceptionally warm summers would we find sweet chestnuts mature enough to save for Christmas. Horse chestnuts were much sought after for conkers. We would gather acorns in Shipley Woods for a neighbour's pig, hoping for a basin of pig's fry when the animal was slaughtered for Christmas. But our busiest time was the blackberry season, when Mam would be kept busy making jam over the kitchen fire, adding a few sour apples to help it gel. The juice for bramble jelly was strained through a piece of mutton cloth tied to the four legs of an inverted chair. Dyes were another item that Mam got for nothing. She would buy empty flour bags from the market at 1 shilling each. These were made of strong, unbleached calico and would last for years. She would cut them open to form one large square. Some she would leave out on the clothesline for several weeks to bleach and then hem them for tablecloths. Some she would boil in the kitchen copper with lichen scraped from old walls and tombstones. These were made into curtains, bedspreads and aprons. I remember 2 colours, saffron yellow and slately blue. These were the natural dyes used by the Harris tweed weavers to dye their women's woolen cloth. I was lucky in having such a resourceful Mam. Her favourite saying was, "We're sure to know what we've got." Her flair for improvisation made a collier's meagre wage go much further than would seem possible. Virtually uneducated by modern standards, her innate ingenuity kept us well fed and decently clothed during those harsh, lean interwar years. How many of us now could do as well? Wash Days by Jean Barber. Wash day was always Monday, whatever the weather, and what a business it was. Mother was up at 6 a.m. to light the copper fire to boil the water. She also lit the kitchen fire, the living room fire, and when Grandma was living with us, the parlour fire. In the backyard, the heavy wooden tub was rolled out and filled with the copper by bucket. The mangle was manoeuvred into position and the galvanised ridged washboard brought out. A bowl of starch was made in blue and cream dolly bag rinsers. People wore more clothes than is usual today, as houses were not centrally heated. The winters really did seem colder and to last longer. We wore heavy white cotton petticoats, liberty bodices, combinations, nightwear and shirts. There were white fringed bedspreads. All bed linen was white. There was no easy care fabrics, no drip dries and no miracle cleansers. There was sunlight soap, soft soap and a few branded powders such as Rinso and Compo. Mother used to make her own washing soap from mutton fat and soda. All white clothes had to be boiled after having been manually pounded on the washboard to loosen the dirt. Boiling seemed to have an almost mystical significance, and the women who neglected this vital operation were regarded as a slattern. So into the boiling water they went for 20 minutes until every room in the house was full of steam and every window running with water. Wet wash days were dreaded as the wet clothes had to be draped around the house to dry. After the boiling came an incredible number of rinsings, starchings, bluings, foldings and manglings before they were finally pegged out on the line for the critical inspection of the neighbours. Many drumhead court was convened in poky backyards for the purpose of castigating some poor woman whose whites were anything but and might bring disgrace upon the street. I myself joined in more than one pitched battle when some temperous child from another street was foolish enough to disparagingly compare our street's washing with theirs. Coming home from school at midday, the scenario was fairly predictable. Mother was harassed and exhausted, and the scratch meal was a rehash of Sunday's leftovers. Worse still, there would be no pudding. But the washing was only the half of it. The dry clothes would be taken in, lightly sprinkled with water, folded or rolled, and then placed in the wicker clothes basket ready for the next operation. The ironing took almost as long, but was generally left until the next day. Then 2 or 3 flat irons were put over the fire to heat, whilst my mother cleared the kitchen table and spread over it a thick blanket and an old sheet. Out would come the iron trivet on which to rest the iron, a thick woolen iron holder and a piece of soap on a plate which cleansed away any starch deposits that collected underneath the iron. As each garment was ironed, it was hung up to air on a wooden contraption that was hauled up to the kitchen ceiling. Here they stayed for several days, as it was believed that damp clothes caused colds and chest complaints. Here they absorbed all the cooking smells of the kitchen, so that putting on clean clothes reminded one of all the meals partaken over the past week. Only another 5 days and the whole process would begin again. I'm really sorry about the noise from my neighbours. As soon as the drill stopped, their kids started crying. I'm reading a book called A Backward Glance. It's a true story by Jean Barber about her childhood between World War I and World War II. I'm in 1930 at the minute, and I just thought it was really interesting. One, hearing the old ways of how her mother used to do things, and how her mother was resourceful and how hard her mother used to work. And also it got me thinking, like, how we might not have it as hard up as they did in 1930 in Ilkeston, but mothers are still resourceful, aren't they? They're resourceful with their money, their time, their love, getting everything done. In this video, apart from a day trip we did to Whitby, where the coach went past the malls and it was beautiful, I was getting ready for a house inspection, and I was really, really stressed about this house inspection. And it wasn't just like cleaning, it was things like picking up random crap out the sink that the kids had left, or picking their coats up for the 100th time, stuff like that. And I was thinking, God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And I did it. I knuckled down and I did it. And that's what mums do. They knuckle down, they're resourceful, they get on and they do it. I'm sure people think I'm ungrateful about this house, but the inspector was a surveyor, and he said this house is a horror story. And he said the kitchen needs replacing. There's no pointing on the back of the house and the side of the house. That's why the water rushes through. The tiles on the roof are slipped. There's not enough insulation in the attic. The windows need replacing. The ceiling underneath the toilet and the bath are dodgy. That's why it was leaking through sometimes. And to be fair to him, that was a couple of weeks ago, and I've already had 4 workmen round. So hopefully a lot of the problems will get sorted. But he did say he'd back our bid to move, because he said this house is too small for the amount of people in it. And I said to him, it's not so much the space, because we cope. It's more the fact there's so many things wrong with this house and we want to move area. So we'll see if he can help us move or not. I don't know. But I am glad the house inspection's over, especially when I'm finding random things like kinetic sand behind the air fryer. I mean, how did that even get there? It's just very, very stressful. And all these people with perfect houses, well, good for you. But I try my best. I do. So I hope you enjoyed that video. I'm enjoying reading this book, and I enjoy things about motherhood in general. And I'm glad the house inspection's over, and I'm glad he's not just fobbed me off like councilmen have in the past. He's actually sending workmen around to try and sort out this house, because it is a disaster, this house, and I'm doing my best with it. And I'm sorry about my neighbours being noisy. Please forgive me. On this channel I do home education, homemaking, low income living. My unfiltered vlogs are now on Patreon. I'll link that below. Please subscribe. I'll see you next time, my loves.